On a cold morning at a bustling English railway station, a poor beggar stood near the platform asking for coins from passing travelers. His clothes were torn, his hands trembling, yet his eyes carried a faint hope. Among the crowd, he noticed a well-dressed businessman waiting for his train. Gathering courage, he approached him and asked softly, "Sir, could you spare some change?" The businessman looked at him and replied firmly, "You always ask others. Have you ever given anything to anyone?" The beggar was stunned. "Sir, I am a beggar. I have nothing to give," he whispered. The businessman smiled faintly and said, "If you cannot give anything, you have no right to ask. Life is about give and take." Then he boarded the train and left, leaving the beggar speechless. That single moment planted a seed of realization in the beggar's heart. After the train departed, the beggar sat quietly on a bench, staring at the moving crowd. The businessman's words echoed in his mind again and again. Life is about give and take. He had never thought of it that way before. For years he begged without purpose, just to survive another day. But now he began to think deeply. Maybe people ignored him, not because he was poor, but because he gave nothing in return. That night, as the station lights dimmed, couldn't sleep. He looked at his empty hands and thought, even if I have nothing, maybe I can still give something small, a smile, a flower, a kind word. That thought changed everything. For the first time, he felt a spark of self-respect. He decided that from tomorrow he would not just ask. He would also give. The next morning, as dawn painted the sky with golden light, the beggar noticed wildflowers blooming beside the railway track. He gently picked a few, their fragrance soft and pure. When passengers arrived, he did what he always did, asked for alms. But this time, when someone gave him money, he offered them a flower in return. People stopped, surprised at his gesture. Some smiled warmly, some laughed kindly, and many gave more than before. Slowly, the beggar realized something powerful. When he gave, he received even more. In just a few days, he was no longer ignored. People began recognizing him as the man with flowers. His eyes carried dignity, his hands purpose. The small act of giving changed his entire world. He had discovered the secret the businessman spoke of. True worth comes when you start giving value, not asking for it. One sunny afternoon, while handing out flowers to passengers, the beggar suddenly spotted a familiar face. The same businessman who had spoken to him months ago. Excited, he hurried toward him and said cheerfully, "Sir, I have something to give you now." He handed the man a small bunch of fresh flowers. The businessman, slightly surprised, smiled and gave him some money in return. Then, looking into the beggar's eyes, he said with admiration, "Wonderful. Today, you are no longer a beggar. You are a businessman." Those words filled the beggar's heart with joy. For the first time, he saw himself not as poor or helpless, but as someone who could create value. That moment transformed his entire mindset. He realized that wealth begins not with money, but with an idea. And he had just found his first business idea through a simple act of giving. 6 months passed, and the same railway station bustled with life as usual. But among the well-dressed men waiting for the train stood someone new, confident, graceful, and successful. He wore a fine suit, carried a briefcase, and had a gentle smile. When the businessman arrived at the station again, he was approached by this man. "Do you remember me?" he asked politely. The businessman frowned slightly and said, "I don't think so." The man smiled. "We've met twice before. I was the beggar who gave you flowers." The businessman's eyes widened in disbelief. The former beggar continued, You taught me that life is about giving and taking. I used to beg, but now I trade in flowers. Your words changed my life." The businessman shook his hand with pride. The beggar had not only changed his life, he had transformed his destiny. The two men stood there, both smiling, as the trains came and went. The former beggar looked into the distance and said, "When I saw myself as a beggar, the world treated me like one. But when I started seeing myself as a businessman, the world began to deal with me." His words carry deep truth. Success does not begin with wealth, luck, or opportunity. It begins with mindset. The moment he decided to give, instead of just take, everything around him changed. He learned that self-respect, confidence, and belief in one's own value are the foundation of success. That day, the station witnessed more than just trains passing by. It witnessed transformation. From a beggar to a businessman, from despair to dignity. One man's change in thinking turned his life into a living lesson. When you believe you can give, the world starts giving back.